The Light and Dark saga finally came to an end, and after 10 years of content, it's finally over. But did Bungie hit the mark when it came to the final shape? Well, yeah, they have to be fair. So leading into Final Shape, we just come out of Season of the Wish and saw the cutscene with Aldrin entering the Pale Heart and seeing that Cade was somehow still alive. Would it have been sick if this was the first time we learned Cade was coming back rather than seeing it in a trailer? Yeah, it would have been, but I understand the whole marketing side of things, so fair enough with that one. Actually moving on to the Final Shape though, you load it up and immediately from the beginning, before even playing it, you get hit with a sequence of great cutscenes. First one being a little nostalgic one with the ghost finding us for the first time, and the second being the creepy one where the witness is actually carrying out the final shape, and the Vanguard spring into action by entering the portal into the Pale Heart. This is how you start an expansion that has high stakes, no messing around, just straight into it. We follow in behind the Vanguard and eventually make it to the Pale Heart, and just the vibe you get when you're walking through that tunnel and things start generating around you and you start seeing things from D1 like the old tower and that, alongside the music, it's just great. After this section, you carry on for a bit and get your first little taste of Prismatic, and unlike Lightfall, you pretty much unlock the actual subclass shortly after this and can use it as much as you want. Now it's a very limited version of it as you need to progress through the campaign to unlock more abilities and stuff like that, but still, it's way better than how they handled Strand in Lightfall. After getting Prismatic though and fighting off a few enemies, we finally come face to face with the man himself.
Well, I'll be damned.
Now I ain't gonna lie, when they first said Cade's coming back, I weren't the biggest fan because I thought it was just a cheap way to bring back a fan favourite, and then it basically means there's no stakes anymore when it comes to people dying. But it was nice seeing them back, and spoiler alert for what happens later, they do manage to work around this and give it a decent conclusion. The rest of the campaign pretty much consists of finding the others who entered the Pale Heart, but it's sort of linear, so like you start on the outskirts and work your way towards the witness, and the closer you get, the more corrupted the Pale Heart is, which really made the campaign feel a lot different and much better than previous campaigns, as it always felt like you were going forward and progressing things. The main key points we learned whilst progressing through the campaign is that Cade was brought back due to Aldrin making a wish to Riven when he entered the portal, and that the shrouded statues that we've been seeing throughout the saga are members of the Witnesses Collective that didn't agree with the whole, and that they are the key to its defeat. This knowledge comes at a cost though, as Zavala ends up losing his ghost because of it. All of this leads to us finally meeting the Witness and using what we learned to our advantage and weakening him. And yeah, I mean weaken him because we don't actually kill him during this, he just makes himself giant and forces us to retreat, which is what took us to the build-up for Salvation's Edge. The build-up was only small, but it introduced us to new characters like Mika 10 and set things up like Crow becoming the new Hunter Vanguard. But instead of just telling us this in like a grimoire or cutscene, it had its own exotic quest, and it's just stuff like this that actually makes you feel like a part of the world, and a great example of how to do things like raid prep, because that's pretty much all this was, just a way to delay the raid and let people get raid ready. But rather than just telling people to play the game, they built the narrative around it, and stuff like that I'm just a massive fan of. Salvation's Edge then came out, and I ain't gonna lie, I didn't even attempt to day one it. I just chilled and let the pros handle all of it. But I'll briefly touch on it because I obviously did do it in the end, and all I've got to say is it's the only raid that I've got the seal for, which is how you know it's a very fun raid, and I highly suggest running through it. That Verity encounter though, I've still got no idea how to solve it to this day, so shout out to the boys who carried me through it every time we ran it. Defeating the Witness in the raid still wasn't enough though, and this is what led us to the actual final encounter with him, which was a 12-man mission where we finally beat him at the cost of our ghost. But this is where the absolute legend himself, Cade, steps in and sacrifices himself for our ghost, which is what I meant before when I said I feel like they dealt with the whole Cade thing really well. And so yeah, that's how the fight against the Witness ends. We return to the tower and have a little celebration with everyone. The end of a 10-year saga handled pretty much perfectly, and that is where we can end.
During the initial formation of the Aurora, a piece of anomalous matter erupted from the Traveler, moving away at relativistic speeds. We tracked one out to a distance between Neptune and Jupiter, in the orbital path of Nessus.
So Echoes was the first episode we got, and I'm just going to be honest and say that there's genuinely no difference between episodes and seasons. They're pretty much the exact same. Episodes are just longer, and the whole point in them is to tie up any loose ends that still remained after the Witness's defeat. Each one also focuses on an Echo, which are basically just memories in the form of paracausal artifacts that have been crafted from both light and dark, and the Echo used within episode Echoes is known as the Echo of Command, and it basically just lets you control others. The basic premise of Echoes is that someone known as the Conductor is controlling the Vex on Nessus, and we need to find out who they are, and this leads us to working alongside Failsafe and installing it in the helm. The other major plot point is that Saint starts being controlled by the Conductor and having like an existential crisis because he thinks he's basically a copy of our original Saint, so we need to help him out with that, which is what we end up doing. We eventually learn that the Conductor is actually Maya Sundaresh, and the goal is to convert all living things into something she can control so that she can create a new golden age, which is obviously very bad and something we need to stop. But surprisingly, we actually don't completely do this, and instead of defeating her, she manages to escape, which essentially just means that there's a psychotic Exo still out there wielding one of the most powerful artifacts that we currently know of.
I can only make you look. Perhaps, in time, you will see.
She escaped.
So, you know, like I can't see that going wrong in the future. Activities wise, we got the seasonal activities and an exotic mission. The exotic mission encore weren't too bad. The only thing about exotic missions these days though is that they're mostly just missions that give you an exotic rather than feeling like exotic missions, if you get me. Like when I say exotic mission, I think like Whisper, Outbreak, Deadman's, not Choir, Slayers or Dyad, if that makes any sense. The genuine best thing about encore is the collectibles and secrets that you can place in the helm, and this also goes for the seasonal activity where you have to collect them rocks. You can have the most boring dead season, but let me collect things and display them and I'll play it all day. Just look at all the cool things that you could collect. We got like these rocks over here. We got this little robot guy. We got a little frog that you can walk up and pet. Like how can you not say that this is peak gameplay right here? The saddest part about all of it though is that it's going to go away when Edge of Fate comes out, which again is why we need an actual dedicated space to store our past achievements, but that is like a topic for a different day. Overall, Echoes was our fun, which is a lot more than I can say for the next episode. Now I can't lie, when they first showed off Revenant, it looked half sick. Like on paper, a Vampire Slayer inspired episode that focuses on the Scorn is a really good premise, and to be fair, the story wasn't bad, it's more just so how they presented it and everything that surrounded the episode that just made me not the biggest fan of it. So like Echoes, we'll do the story content first and then focus on the other stuff. This episode focuses on the Echo Reese, and it can basically corrupt the ether within living Elixni, turn them into Scorn, and it comes into the possession of Fickrell, who starts using it on House Salvation, which is the house Eramis leads. The best way for it to protect her house is to accept being taken prisoner by us in return for the safety of her people. So we take her prisoner, but then Fickrell manages to get aboard the helm and does this.
Our children, reborn through extinction, risen as Scorn.
I ain't saying failsafe is a jinx or anything, but the helm's been sound for years, and the second she gets installed into it, it basically gets destroyed. Because the helm is now out of commission, we get a new social space, which is when we run into Mithrax, who ain't looking too good because of the Nezarec curse. This essentially means that there's 3 main plot points that we need to resolve: stopping Fickrell, what to do with Eramis, and how to help Mithrax. And the character who helps us out with all of this is Ido, through the use of her tonic crafting skills. Long story short, Ido needs help from Eramis, so has us break her out of prison. They work together to craft a tonic that'll turn Fickrell mortal so we can finally kill him, and the Echo chooses Eramis as its new wielder, who uses it to extract the curse from Mithrax. Eramis then leaves our system and plans to use the Echo to create a new Elixni homeworld. So like I said, the story isn't bad, but the way they presented it just weren't it. So usually we get the story content brought out over a couple of weeks, but for Revenant they decided to just release all the story content on the first day of each act, and this pretty much meant once you'd done the story stuff, there was no real reason to come back for the following weeks, and this was even worse because the seasonal activities that we did get just weren't it in my opinion. Also, the tonic system was going to be one of the most pointless things they've ever done. Like I genuinely don't even think I used a single tonic the whole time. I only crafted them to get the seal done, and that was pretty much it. Other than that though, we got another exotic mission and a dungeon. I don't have too much to say about the mission other than the organ was a funny addition. And in terms of the dungeon, it was the first contest mode dungeon that we've had. I ran it on contest, completed contest, and then didn't really want to run it again. I know people say Vespers is a good dungeon, but I don't know, I just really didn't like it as much as the others. I just feel like it goes on for a bit too long, but then maybe that's just because I did run it on contest. And then because you get the exotic for completing contest, I haven't really needed to run it back. So overall, Revenant weren't the best, but it did give some story arcs a decent conclusion, so it is what it is. Lucky enough for us though, Bungie did save the best for last with the next episode. If you watched the last retrospective video that I did, then you'll remember me saying this. Now I honestly don't know what it is with Savathun, but every time she's involved in something, you just know it's going to be good. I'm taking that back and I'm changing it too. Every time the Hive in general are involved in something, you just know it's going to be good. For some reason, the Hive just work when it comes to anything to do with the narrative, and Heresy is no different. So it basically starts with us discovering these weird anchors in the EDZ and tracking their points of origin to the Dreadnought. Eris and Drift to join us for this, and Eris ends up being killed by a subjugator known as the Resonant Knife. It turns out though that Eris has a throne world so doesn't die, but everyone else thinks that she has because they're all unaware of the whole throne world thing. And then in order to find out what's actually happening on the Dreadnought, we have to increase our understanding of taking power, so Sloane begins teaching us how to control it, which is how she comes into it. We also come into contact with the Echo of this episode, and this one is known as the Echo of Navigation, and unlike the other two, this Echo sort of acts as its own entity, and it takes the form of Oryx because it's his memories that resulted in its creation. The interesting part about this though, is that it's not just the Oryx that we killed coming back, it's more of a Prime Oryx coming back, and to be honest, he's genuinely a chill guy. Like, he finds out we're the one who killed him, and instead of wanting revenge and all that, he's just like, oh, so if I died, then I deserved it. And this makes sense because of the whole sword logic thing. There's also something else interesting about this episode, and it's the whole mystery surrounding the Taken and who their new leader is. Throughout the episode, we start to learn that a new force is taking enemies and creating an army. We just don't know who, and spoiler alert, we don't find out, so I'm guessing we will in the Fate Saga. Back to what actually happened during Heresy though, and this is just going to be like a really brief telling of what happened, but basically, we craft Oryx's sword Willbreaker and use it to gain access to Eris's throne world. She then traps the Echo inside her throne world. Sivu and Savathun try to reclaim the Echo, but we stop them, and then because the Echo is too much for Eris to hold, it escapes her throne world, and we have to use Willbreaker to destroy it. So that was the story, which thankfully reverted to coming out over a few weeks rather than all in one. And then activities wise, we again got the seasonal stuff, an exotic mission, and another dungeon. For seasonal activities, you had the fun one, which was the Never, and the boring one, which was Court of Blades. And then again, I don't really have too much to say about the exotic mission. It's pretty much like I said before, it just feels like a regular mission that gives you an exotic at the end. Like the last dungeon, I also completed this one on contest mode, but I'd say out of the two, this was the more enjoyable one for me, and I've got better memories of it. But that might just be because I actually completed the quest that was tied to this one, unlike Vespers. And yeah, that's pretty much it for Heresy. Overall, I'd say it was the strongest episode we got out of the three, and I'm half glad that they saved it for the end. Now, Heresy was the last episode we got, but the last piece of content we got this year was Right of the Nine, which was the prelude for Edge of Fate, and that's pretty much all you need to know about it. There was a community chess puzzle that was fun and interesting, but the actual event itself, I weren't the biggest fan of, I can't lie. I feel like bringing out an event where the main goal is collecting weapons that'll shortly be replaced by even better weapons in like a month or two probably wasn't the best play, and having an event tied to the 9 and only limiting it to 3 dungeons also doesn't really make sense, but again, it is what it is. If you enjoyed it, I'm glad. I just weren't the biggest fan. So what are my overall closing thoughts? Final Shape was a fantastic experience and a great way to end a 10-year-long saga. The episodes did their job at tying up any loose ends, but having them as self-contained stories also comes with its downsides. Unlike last year where all of the seasons led into one another and built hype for what was going to happen in the final shape, the same hasn't really happened this year, and despite cliffhangers being present such as Maya escaping and the unknown taking threat, there's been no real build up for Edge of Fate apart from Right of the Nine, and I feel like this is why some people, including myself, aren't as hyped for Edge of Fate as they were for Final Shape, if that makes sense. Obviously this is also going to do with the fact that Edge of Fate is essentially a new beginning, but I do feel like a bit more build up would have been decent. Now despite me saying that, I am looking forward to Edge of Fate and seeing what the future of Destiny has in store for us, and I do plan on sticking around till the end of this new saga, no matter what they decide to come out with. They killed JFK with what?